All right, welcome to Jeff Carroll and the Sci-Fi Express Lane, talking about indie comics and just being an indie person. Anyway, like, subscribe, share, comment. Let's get it started. People have been talking a lot about being indie comics and supporting indie comics since this DC milestone crossover comic book that came out, and I haven't gotten my copy yet. My stores were sold out down here in South Florida, or my local store I think only got like less than 10 copies. Of course, maybe they didn't believe in the black element of it. They said it was the artwork, so maybe that's it. I have no idea. But I wanted to comment on just the dialogue going on black comics and the black community, or the black comics and supporting black comics and all of that. As you can see, I'm black. I've been black my whole life. I've embraced my blackness and things black since when I was a fan. Early on, I went to see movies, and if they had black people in it, I was attracted to it. I used to complain in the 80s that these movies was too white. I remember doing that. So my motivation to create comes from that foundation, Now, last night I was at an elementary school, and the kids asked me what motivates me to write my stories. And to be honest, a lot of that does come from seeing other stories, how well they're done, getting inspiration from them, thinking they could have gone a different way. They tell a story and I'd be like, oh, it creates a lane for another story. So that's part of it. But then the other part is also racial. I'm not going to deny that when I learn new things in history, when I see the story told a different way, I'd be like, oh, we need a black Beethoven story now. We need to deal with that, black guy, the black samurai, if it's a black samurai, or whatever else that we are learning that's new. We need a Lewis Latimer story, not only because it's black, because Thomas Edison and these people have hidden these stories. So I feel that is a lot of my motivation. So as a black creator, I feel part of that is my responsibility. Now, fast forward to how does that relate to talking about indie comics? And mind you, I need every minute of my 15 minutes when I give these little commentaries, because I pull points from way over to way over, but I'll make it work. But anyway, because it's going to support my closing comment. How does that support, or how does that relate to people supporting black comics? So when I say, oh, I would love to write a Lewis Latimer story or a black Egyptian story, right? How does that relate to the black audience or black people supporting, or just me making a comic book? I don't look at my stories as only something black people would be interested in. Lewis Latimer invented the filament in the light bulb. He gave the light bulb the light. The bulb was Thomas Edison. The manufacturing and the business probably was both of them. But Lewis Latimer created the filament. That is as important as Thomas Edison's invention, if not more important. That is not only black history, but world history. He didn't invent the light bulb for New Jersey. He invented it for America. Not only America, but the world is lit up because this black American's invention. So how dare people think that the story of how he learned to create it and his hardships to become an inventor and a scientist are only a Black History Month story? Are you kidding me? Expand your scope, expand your understanding. Sure, people might not want to hear it. Sure, there's a lot of racists that would kick back. You know, you got the MAGA people. Yeah, but that doesn't mean you disown all of the other people around the world that might find it interesting, that it's important too. So to me, my scope of black stories is already big, right? Or bigger than what people think. People think that might just be a black American story. And I'm like, nah, bro. It's a global story. It's a human story. When humans created light on the planet, invented light, that's a human story. You understand? It ain't just a Black History Month. Now, will I tell it in Black History Month? Absolutely yes, because it's, you know, just like Indian inventions that impact the world. Sure, they need to be told through the Indian eyes, but they are a world story. Same thing with what China invents and creates. It's a world story. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes these countries and these cultures lie like they do, you know, with Pythagorean. If pi existed before Pythagoras, then it's not Pythagoras' theorem, right? You know, if E equals MC squared existed before Einstein, then it's not Einstein. And he don't really get credit for it because it did exist. But we call the Pythagorean theorem Pythagoras'. And if you look at the base of the pyramid, base of the pyramids in Egypt, they come up and equal pi, and they had to have known that before. So yeah, there's a little bit of informational correction that is needed in black stories, but other than that, and when we're talking about the pyramids, that's not black history. Let's get that correct. Black people came from Africa, but it's an African history story first and foremost because it took place in Africa. Egypt is in Africa. So that's the one thing. So you get all that stuff in the perspective. And then the second thing I'll bring in is when I do stories from a black perspective. Like, what would black people do if a comet is coming to Earth? Sure, it's a black story, but it's not only something of interest to black people. When I wrote Harlem Shake about an earthquake that hits New York City, it hits Harlem, it's not destroying Harlem only. It's not picking out the Harlem buildings that are black and destroying. No, it destroyed the East Coast and reshaped the world. I just told it through the perspective of people in Harlem. So that's like saying any story that doesn't have a black lead is not a black audience target. There's different audiences. There's a black audience. There's an audience that likes drama. There's an audience that likes horror. There's an audience that likes action, post-apocalypse, zombie. When you start looking at your stories from those perspectives, then you can say, hey, my target audience is action people. My target audience is horror people. And just look at, your genres or your audience as a hashtag. So when you hashtagging stuff, that means you bringing in those audiences. So if I put my story out there, Church of God in Space, which is about a comet coming to Earth to destroy Earth. If I hashtag comet, now I'm bringing in all those people that like stories about comet. If I hashtag space, I'm bringing in all those people that like space because it may be of interest to them. If I hashtag black science fiction, I'm going to bring in all those people that, so those are my target audiences. Now, there's an age range to it, and then, there's another reality that black people aren't monolithic. Every black person doesn't like everything that's black. Are you kidding me? Now, there are black people that will try everything. I'm one of those black people. You give me a Western, you give me a ballet story. It's not black culture, but I will check it out if it's a black person's story in it. A black hockey player. I never watched hockey in my life, not a full game. And you put some black people in it, I'm watching it. You understand? Because I want to see the black experience. But I do watch other stories. I have different types of genres. I like zombies. So it may not be no black people prominent in World War Z, but I'm watching it. It may not be black people prominent in 28 Days Later or any of the sequels, but I'm watching it. Now, this last one is an exception because it was trash. But so that's how I look at it. Now, so when we talk about independent comics, and I'm 10 minutes setting this stupid thing up, that's why I'm going to do another video on the DC Marvel Dakota incident, because I haven't even read it. I may get it this weekend. My son picked it up for me, so I do own a copy. But when we talk about independent comics in the black community, we have to accept that black people aren't monolithic. Not to mention, they are just like the mainstream community. There's a lot of black people that are independent, and there is an independent white community and other communities, right? So part of black comic books is similar to indie comics. The part that's independent is very similar to it. Yes, we have our own set of obstacles, but you know, there's a guy that got me into Kickstarter who not only he's second or third the motion for me to get into Kickstarter. He was like, you know, you got people that will buy you because you're black. As a white creator, I have to go sheerly on my genre, you know, and there's people that will buy it, and you know, the audience might be bigger for him, but he was like, you know, your base audience could be bigger if you learn how to find your audience and speak to that audience. So that's one thing that's different, but the same negative connotations and the same negative things that have packed the mainstream indie world are some of the same things that impact the black independent comic world. We're not edited right. Our illustrations, the bubbles, you name it. I've gotten all of those critiques myself on my work. So, you know, I'm speaking from firsthand experience. But when I talk to my other white mainstream, if there's a mainstream indie, that sounds redundant, I mean, oxymoron, but if there's a mainstream indie, you know, I talk to them, they come up with the same responses. You know, there's some people that are white that don't even want to try to get a publishing deal anymore because they've been rejected so much, but they found a niche in indie. And what's the benefits of indie? I'll go into a little bit, but maybe I need to do a whole show, a blog on it. But you don't have to follow the mainstream tropes. You get to inspire different types of trends. Sure, say zombies is in right now, but I may want to do a vampire story, so I can do it. Whereas a mainstream publisher will just use that data and they only looking for zombie stories until zombies tap out. But an independent person, you can do a vampire story. Now, the other thing is, independent stuff, your stuff don't have to come off the shelf. If you are active on the comic con scene, you can offer books all the time. I'm going to print some more of my books later this spring, because hopefully, you know, I'm going to sell out at C2E2. Hopefully I'll get into MegaCon and sell out there, and then I'll have to order more books for my my April and May and June shows. But yeah, you know, my books ain't going out of print unless I don't want to sell them anymore. But if you want to buy a book from 5 years ago of mine, what's the big deal of me having it in print and selling it? You understand? So that's one of the other things. And then I'll say here, and maybe I need to outline it because I have a lot more points to make. But when I started into writing and being creative, it was through film, and my film was indie. And indie film is a niche group that is appreciated. They almost mention indie with pride, right? Comic books, indie is a negative. Then I took and I don't know why that is, or maybe I'll talk about it one day. But when I got into comic books, film, I turned my film into a novel, all right? That was after I did a comic book for it. Then I got into writing books. And guess what I was? I was an independent publisher or independent writer. That is almost a mixed bag. It's very much like comic book indie. It's not as prestigious as independent film, because independent film can be your studio film. It's just not a Hollywood studio. And now these studios aren't located in Hollywood anymore, so it's all over the place. But indie books, the biggest black independent book is Street Lit, and they took all the criticism that indie comics took, and they turned it into positive. They poor written, it's redundant stories. Man, there was it was street lit bookstores in malls all over the country. People were going to conventions and festivals just for street lit. If we could have that craze around black comic books, black independent comic books, we'd lose our minds. So anyway, let me just wrap this up. I think for the people who are black creators who are complaining about black independent fans and the support for those, I think you got to do your diligence and own your independence and cater to that independence in a way that the mainstream published comic books can't. Because if you keep trying to write stuff that you think will get you a publishing deal, you're not embracing your independence. I do both. I have my Fingernail series that I'm planning to do a Kickstarter for, but I wrote it because I think a mainstream publisher will like it. But then I have my Street series, and that is totally for conventions. I don't even think, when I did Cyberpunk Streets, I had a story on there called The Ass Doctor and a naked robot, which makes no sense because robots don't have flesh. But anyway, no store could carry it, and I could only sell it at conventions. And that was what started me thinking, well, damn, Jeff, be a convention seller. You need to sell something at conventions. If you go there and all your books are in stores, that's a different type of table. But when you go to me at my book, not only am I signing everything, which is a commodity in its own, but my books are only available at the convention. Now, I do have an online vendor that I haven't started promoting yet, but I will. But right now, my books are only available at conventions and a part of my Kickstarter. So anyway, I'm already 17 minutes, but I wanted to share my piece on it. Black indie comic guys, let's not be too hard on the black fans, black comic book fans. They are there and they will support you. If they didn't, I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't still be around with 15 books and Kickstarters, 12 Kickstarters that's successful. Anyway, thank you. Like, subscribe, share, and comment. All right. It's actually 3 minutes over. All right. Peace. Sci-Fi Express Lane out.